We alive right now, man. It's going down, excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
At least pride-wise, made me feel good because you don't ever want to get swept.
And I've never done this. I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
If you ask me, can the Bucks win Game 5? I'd put it at
100%
confidence. Yes.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
At this point, we don't know what's going to happen. You can get Game 6. You can steal it.
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
Winning Game 6 and 7?
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
I don't think they're going to win the whole series, but
I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
Hello, and welcome to episode 189 of Deer Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks Podcast, presented to you and before you by the staff of us here at Brewhoop. I'm Kyle Carr. Clearly, I've not done an introduction in a while, hence why I have completely butchered it. So I apologize, but I am joined by Riley Feldman. Riley, how's it going?
I'm doing very well, Kyle. I'm excited to discuss what may go down as the best week that these Milwaukee Bucks see in the entirety of the 2024-2025 season. So I'm happy that we have a winning streak to talk about. So I'm doing well, and I'm excited to talk about the team.
Is this the point where we're going to look back and the Bucks go down the Milwaukee with the championship parade, and we say this is the week where it all turned around? Who knows? But we're also going to have the OG crew. Adam is here. Hi, Adam. How's it going?
I'm doing great. Glad to be back. Always appreciate folks filling in. Jack was great last week, but glad to be back with the crew and discussing this team that continues to confound me and I think disappoint most of us. But I'm excited to be with you two to talk about it.
Hey, I was going to say we're coming off a good week. Milwaukee won on Monday against the Toronto Raptors in the first game in the NBA Cup, 99-85, and then they went back and decided we're gonna try winning 2 games in a row, and succeeded. They beat the Detroit Pistons 127-120. Giannis scored 59 points in that game. And then on Saturday, Milwaukee went to Charlotte. Unfortunately, came up short, lost 114-115. No thanks to the referees, who got the final call wrong. That sent LaMelo Ball to the line. And unfortunately, Giannis tried taking a mid-range jumper that it did not go in. So 2 wins and a loss this week. That's the first time we can say that since, I don't know, at some point, probably February of last year, maybe. But overall, those are the breakdown of the week. So we're going to start with Adam. I'm going to get it out of the way because I feel like yours and Riley's things that you learned are pretty hand in hand. So Adam, I'll let you go first.
Okay, I had a few questions because it's been a while since I've been on. So my first question is, there's been no Dame because of the concussion protocol that he's been in.
Thanks, refs.
Thanks, refs. There's been no Chris because he doesn't have ankles. And now we're sitting at a point where Giannis is putting an incredible amount of tread on his tires. And I'm wondering, what did we learn? And I'm trying to look forward with a lens towards the playoffs. And my question for you two is this struggling start the best thing that could have ever happened to this team's long-term potential in terms of Doc being forced to play players that we think might actually be needed in the playoffs?
I think the answer to that question is completely dependent on what Doc does when guys are healthy again. Because right now, the way that I look at him playing Ajax and AJ Green in particular is it's actually a good bit of pragmatism. And pragmatic Doc in the past would be playing the veterans as many minutes because, of course, they're the guys who know what they're doing. You can trust them, blah, blah, blah. But the very disappointing or lackluster performances from the free agent veterans that came in forced his hand a little bit. Injuries have forced his hand a little bit. I can't say whether or not this is good for long-term progress because if, God willing, Dane comes back and we bring Chris back from the dead, that ritual that they're running for the past couple of months works and he comes out of the grave and he, like the Undertaker, is Doc then going to use that as an opportunity to say, okay, now we're back. Now we're going to see what Gary Trent Jr. looks like with these guys. What does DeLon Wright, who's starting and putting up hilarious stat lines while he's doing it, like what role does he have at that point? So maybe but way too early to say. I want to give 2 thumbs up for the fact that he pulled the trigger on the Ajax switch and he stuck with it. And that's way more than I was expecting from Doc this early in the season. Now, Gary Trent Jr. is playing so bad that it made the decision a lot easier. But yeah, I can't fully answer that. But I like the kind of thrust of your question.
I think it's a good thing because at the very least, you can say Ajax can be a good rotation player / starter. AJ Green could be a starter / rotation player. You are getting questions that are answered. Ryan Rollins seems like someone who should be on a 15 team roster. Maybe, like, I don't know about full on rotation minutes yet, but at least should get off to the 2-way side of things. So I think that is the encouraging part. And it's also Doc not just shelving, like he probably could have shelved AJ Green and Ajax once, Gary Trent Jr. was back. He played a lot better against Charlotte, and he had a better week. But he could have, decided we're just going to go back to the veterans. He hasn't done that. I think even if Rollins is healthy, I think he's still going to give him chances. It might be at the expense of DeLon Wright, but I think that is the encouraging part of it. Now, the bigger question is going to be how does the minutes turn out once Chris gets back? Because now you're wondering, okay, you got Chris, you'll have Ajax, you'll have Taurean Prince, you'll have AJ Green. Like, you got all these guys that are kind of wing options, and someone's going to have to sit. So that's when I'm curious when Chris comes back, what does that plan, if he ever comes back, what that plan is. But I think in terms of the long term, at least you have young players that can play, which is what we've been screaming for the last year.
Go ahead, Riley.
I was going to say, so like I was thinking about this before you even asked it when I was out walking the dog earlier tonight. I was like, so Andre Jackson finally gets his chance. And you always wonder with teams like this, where at what point are the young guys going to get the opportunity? They didn't really get that many opportunities through the first 10 games outside of some AJ Green minutes. And so you start thinking over the 82, and all you're thinking of is there'll be stopgaps for injuries, presumably, like when guys get banged up. So it's really gratifying, even if we really had to force the situation, to see these guys get minutes and deliver at least something. Like, no matter what, how chaotically Andre Jackson Jr. can play, I feel like through this short little period, we've at least dispersed some of the concerns of like, oh man, he seems to really be struggling. I don't know if he's taken that step forward. Even if he's still sort of the same player from last season, stylistically, he's so different from anybody else that Doc can possibly throw out there that it's worthwhile to give that chance, see that it's been validated, and he's just going to have to keep giving him minutes. Like, that's how development works for guys. You give them minutes, you write it out. Yes, would it be great if they were winning a ton and he could make time for them then, I guess. But I mean, if you're going to firefight, at least be consistent about it. So in that regard, I was very gratified thinking about it, that we're actually seeing the follow through. It wasn't just one game like, I'm really pissed at the vets, so Andre, go out there. It's like, no, Andre's going to stay in the starting lineup so long as it seems to be somewhat working. So I think that's a good move from Doc. And in a season where I cannot say strongly that I felt like positively about a lot of what Doc has done, that's one thing that I say he definitely should get kudos for so far.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would kind of agree with Riley. I think the other part of it is this does seem like a Doc that is trying more different things. Part of it is because the team is doing so terrible and injuries. But, one of the biggest criticisms of Doc was his more or less stubbornness and not being willing to try stuff. So I think this was like him going to Ajax early. That was good. Him trying Ryan Rollins out. That was good. It seems as though Doc is kind of getting a better grasp of, all right, we're going to try some things. Part of it, and yes, it is being forced on us, but at the same time, it's encouraging to see it because that's always been one of the biggest criticisms towards it. So him working on it is good. I just hope that it continues in a positive way where we do see a little bit more of like, if guys aren't cutting it, you're benching them and putting it someone else.
It'll be curious. I mean, I'll be curious to see how it turns out. I think Andre Jackson Jr. is always an intriguing player. I think the personal fouls thing is my biggest concern with him. hopefully eventually he can find some sort of offensive rhythm. I know he's been pretty good shooting the three in limited volume again this year. Was good against Charlotte, so that was nice to see. I mean, I think just point blank, he needed to be playing out there given how awful our defensive structure is and the teams that the Bucks would have to face off against. There's just no one else on the roster who's capable of doing that. I think the biggest lingering question that's been beaten, into the ground so far is the Bobby Portis question. Obviously, I think, I won't go too far into it because you all have talked about it plenty. But I mean, this is sort of case in point, the time when you need him the most. This is tailor made for him. Like no Dame, no Chris. We just need like scoring punch from you, and you're still a huge net negative. I see he was +5 in the Hornets game, which is, the first positive trend, it seems like, of the season. So there's a little positive note there. But I think the other question I have for both of you is, why do you think Brook Lopez is struggling so much so far this year? I mean, that's my guy. I think he's been good on the defensive side of the floor, but offensively, he's just nowhere near what he should be doing this year. And so I'm curious what, if anything, you two think might be going on with his offensive production.
I think he's just not using his 7-foot, God knows how many pound frame. I think a lot of it is he's trying to do too much shooting the 3-ball, and it doesn't feel as though his pick and roll has been as effective. And part of that is Dame being hurt the last couple games has definitely hurt Brook, because that was like the one pick and roll thing that was working for him. But I think it's just he's a little bit slower. He's taking more threes, and it doesn't seem as though he is intentionally going to the block and saying, I'm going to work you on the block. Like, I feel like there are stretches where Brook will just get the ball in the post and then do whatever he needs to and get a basket. And he hasn't done it as much. So I think it's just less aggressive, and then not having Dame, who he has done well with in the pick and roll situation. I think those are like the two biggest factors.
It's strange. I'm looking at his numbers right now. So this is his worst shooting season from 3 as a Buck since 2018, 2019. He is getting up the second highest number of threes on a nightly basis since he's become a Buck. The most was in his first season when he was getting up 6.3 a night. So is it just a simply reverting to mean, waiting for him to come back to the mean? It could be that. I'm looking at him playing, and yes, as Kyle notes, he's not going inside as much, and he doesn't have Dame to do the pick and roll. However, the shots themselves aren't really out of step with what he's done in the past. He's done some in the past walk-up threes or in transition threes occasionally, which are hilarious because he's 7 feet tall, but like that's how confident he was taking them. I look at it more so as hopefully it's like a lot of shooters just got to wait for the numbers to kind of come back up to it. It doesn't look mechanically off. It's kind of a big bummer that I'm out there like, please, anybody make a freaking 3, and it continues to be broken. He's going 1 of 8, and you're like, damn, that sucks. But I look at it more so maybe as simply just waiting for the numbers to bump back up, which is not a very satisfying answer. However, Kyle's explanation about why he's not going inside as much, and that's something I think he could say for everybody on the team. Giannis's free throw rate is down. Bobby's free throw rate is down. Brooks is down. Dame's, I think, is okay, but he's been out for a couple days. So it's not something unique just to him. I think they're all just getting a little old and tired of having to go in there, especially when the shooting's as bad from everybody else, typically. And then defenders can key up on you. It's not easy. It's not a 1v1 every single time. You're usually getting 2 guys, if not 3, if you're Giannis, for example.
Well, and the Charlotte game was a weird outlier game because Giannis, I think I saw at like one point in the fourth quarter, Giannis only shot 1 free throw, which that's just a weird situation for someone like Giannis to not get to the free throw line that frequently, given how he's scoring. So there could be some questions on, what is going on with refereeing, which we'll briefly touch on, I'm sure. But I think the free throw rate being down is a little surprising given what Milwaukee's offense has kind of had to resort to the last basically week.
Dude, this guy is playing more minutes a night than he ever has as a Buck. He's playing more minutes a night than he has since 2015, 2016. In almost a decade. He's getting I'm just now realizing the extent to which he is having to play because Bobby has been that bad and our big rotation is that scant if he's not out there. So maybe it's the fact that he's almost 40 years old and he's playing the most minutes he's had to play since he was a decade younger. That might have something to do with it too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I cede the floor to the other. What did we learn? Thank you both for weighing in on my pressing
Wait,
questions.
hold on. I'm not going to let you get off that easy. We got to do that. You already teased it internally to me and Kyle. Is it time for did we determine the paternity test? Is that what we're calling it?
No. It was either a patfession or a pattervention.
Okay. I like those two. I like paternity tests. I like that.
We can do that as well. We're not doing Doc Walsh this week. We are doing the paternity pattervention session test.
Go ahead, Adam. Well, so Pat had a little bit of a bounce back game, for him. Let's talk about Pat. Yes. We got to talk about Pat last week. We really don't have to spend a lot of time on him because I think the book is out on it.
That was hard to listen to.
Yeah, I'm sure it was, but now the floor is yours.
His shooting almost won Milwaukee the game against Charlotte. His defense was part of the reason why Milwaukee lost it at the end. Go ahead.
Just when I thought I was out, he reels me back in. I mean, come on. This guy guts out a 21-minute 4 of 8 performance in a losing effort against the Hornets. I mean, -3. What more could you ask for? I think I'm, you know what? No, I'm not going to admit I'm fully out on Pat yet. I was going to say it because I thought Jack made some great points last week on the podcast that I'd been thinking, which were he can do everything he did during the championship year. Just literally everything is worse. And that's not a great recipe for success. I think the secret to what made Pat super helpful that year was he could actually kind of hold his own defensively and work on some switches. And I don't think he has that anymore, but I am teetering on the edge of being, I don't know how the paternity test works. If I am no longer his, I don't know.
Yeah, well, don't worry. You don't need to commit too hard to the bit right now.
Okay. I will not worry about that.
Let's workshop it.
I am still in on Pat, but only by the narrowest of threads. And I'm curious to see how it works when everyone fits in. But I mean, what I'll say is, I mean, he can still do a little bit of everything. And we'll see if my guy DeLon Wright, who I had high hopes for, but he is struggling offensively is what I'll say. So I just need him to hit a few threes. So we'll see. I want DeLon Wright to become my new pet project, but right now I'm keeping some money down on Pat. So hopefully he keeps delivering.
What's very funny about Pat, just real quick, Kyle. So we talked after the Celtics game. He only plays 13 minutes. I say, hey, it's bad with Pat, but we got to give Doc credit. He's not playing as many minutes as he has. Pat immediately plays 20, 24, and 21 minutes. Doc said, not so fast, my friend. I still believe in Pat. And if Doc still believes in Pat, we have no choice but to believe in Pat because I don't think he's going away anytime soon. He's not going quietly into that dark night for Pat just yet.
Probably not. But all right, Riley, you can go ahead. What did you learn this past week?
It's very ironic, isn't it, guys? After all these years, all those weeks where Jack wrote extremely well-written articles about how Giannis needs to expand, Jack, every time he has been on the podcast, has said we need to see more from Giannis, not just in terms of scoring, but everything else he does. I've been saying we need Giannis 2.0 for a while. I know we kind of all are thinking about what direction does his career go in his 30s. And yet we're back here, and Giannis has to save our ass every single night because what the hell else are we going to do? So what I learned is that Giannis is still the only reason we're not 0-13, really. And the issue, I've diagnosed the issue as this. One, Giannis does need to play differently, but I've lost hope in that actually happening. I actually slightly dread Dame coming back because it's like, now we'll get back into they don't match up. They don't like playing with each other, blah, 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 like all that sort of stuff. So I'm dreading that slightly. However, it will be nice to have somebody else who can score out there. The thing with Giannis is he plays the way he does, And if you don't have him out there, you're going to be 0-13. And until we see something different from somebody else to give us a reason to, the best way to win probably still is Giannis doing the Giannis thing he has the past couple years. What's glaring this time around is the supporting cast is so weak and the defense has been so bad, him included, that the thin margins that he himself with Dame and a couple other guys here or there have at least gotten the team within are so thin that he'll have his 3-minute stretch where he plays really bad, and that just sinks the team. And it's unfortunate that the stakes are that high, and he does all the work to get us there, and then he falls short. That it forces us to focus in on him and say, "Oh, we need to change this." He needs to be smart enough to pass out of that. He still needs to be smart enough to pass out of that. I'm not saying it's acceptable for him to have a 3 to 4 minute stretch with the game on the line to play really poorly. However, what I've learned is a lot of that early season talk is worthwhile, but is not going to matter, especially so long as Chris Middleton is out, because nobody else besides Dame has been a reliable enough scorer, and Bobby's too bad on defense to make it work. So as much as we may hope for the next evolution of Giannis, ironically, so long as Dame is here and Chris remains here with all the injury questions around him, I don't think we're ever going to see that next Giannis. He'll just be 34 years old. God willing, he's still here playing the exact same way, because there's just has never been really a movement team-wise or him or whoever to push it in a different direction. So it's ugly. I understand why people are frustrated with it, but also it's the only way we're going to win these games, especially right now, this homestand where you got to clean up against these lower teams, these slightly worse teams. If you just got to get on Giannis' back, sorry, that's what we got to do. So Adrian Griffin, shout out. He had the key. He said, I'm not going to do any coaching. Giannis is going to figure it out. He knows what he's doing. And you know what? Giannis did. And we're back there again. And Doc said, you know what? I'm not even going to do any coaching. Giannis knows what he's doing. So salute, respect. I'm happy that we're at least getting wins. And what did we get with Giannis as the lead guy? Best week of the season in terms of wins and losses, which, isn't it, the best way to measure it. But, follow with me here, my line of thinking. So kind of a long stretch of thought, but that Giannis is the only reason we're not 0-13 really. And it's frustrating, but we kind of have to accept it for what it is.
Yeah. I mean, this past week has been a good display of Giannis overall. Like against the Raptors, he didn't need to do too much. He was taking smart shots. He didn't have to force anything because everyone else was actually being able to contribute. Against the Pistons, it was kind of like Game 6 Giannis. I'm just going to score every point. I'm going to make all my free throws, 16 to 17 from the line of that game. I'm just going to do that. You guys figure it out, and I'll make some defensive plays as well. Like that was kind of the, all right, screw the Giannis 2.0 talk too. Let Giannis do what he's doing because it's working. And with the Hornets, it was kind of like a mixed bag because, again, the fact that he didn't get to the free throw line was a little bit surprising. He did seem to do a better job at facilitating and at the very least making the smarter pass, the easy and smarter pass. That's why he was able to get 12 assists. But I think the bigger thing with this week was more, if Milwaukee wins against Charlotte, we're probably talking about like, wow, this was a great week for Giannis. Like this is, again, we seem to figure out this is the key for him. So I think the nice thing is he's only taken 7 threes.
I was going to say he's taking like no threes at all. Yeah, he's not taking,
which is good. He's doing more of the mid-range jumpers, which against Detroit he was making those. So it was like, all right, we'll go. And then for the final shot against Charlotte, it's kind of like, I don't love that being the shot, but I feel like we're slowly getting to that. Like he's taking less threes, and I think we are now permanently in that area. So now it's kind of can we get the other part to happen faster than what we need? Like, I don't think Giannis 2.0 is coming this season or next year. I think it's going to be another 3 years. But we're seeing parts of Giannis 2.0 happening slowly but surely.
Yeah, Giannis, point of clarification, Giannis 2.0 is the fully actualized Giannis, right? Not like the older, broken down Giannis.
Giannis 2.0 is whatever you want it to be, which is why it's a beautiful thing to say, because it doesn't mean anything. It just means, what does Giannis, when he's not bull rushing as his first instinct and doing kind of what we're talking about. A lot of the cleanup stuff on both ends of the floor. What does that look like? Which, again, he's only 29 going on 30. So it's probably still, like Kyle said, realistically a few seasons off. But whenever I sit around and think about the team's long-term future and what's the fit, where do we go, who's the best players around him, I always wonder, what does his game adjusting to reduce physicality look like? And that may primarily involved, especially fewer paint touches. So that's what I think when I think of Giannis 2.0, because I still think, ironically, he's the best creator for others on the team. Like Dame is here, but Dame is not nearly as much of a shot creator for others as I thought he was going to be. So ironically, the playmaking part is still there. It needs to be refined, but it kind of means whatever you want it to mean, realistically.
So I had some stats here. What if I told you both that Giannis is posting the lowest turnover percentage of his career? He's shooting the fewest threes of his career, percentage-wise. He's shooting the best from long mid-range his career, and shooting the best in the short mid-range of his career. And he's at 73% at the rim. Would you be surprised by those numbers?
I'm surprised at the turnover one.
Yes.
Not because I don't think he's bull rushing get offensive fouls. It just feels like there have definitely been stretches like that Chicago Bulls game. Like there feels like there's been stretches where it's just like Giannis is just making bad mistakes / bad passes. It felt like there were stretches, but all the other stats aren't as surprising.
I would say I'm not surprised because I looked those numbers up earlier today, so I can't pretend.
Oh my God.
So I just got to be straight up about that. However, when I was looking through it, if I think not to a specific memory, but my general impressions of his game this season, it does seem like last season actually kind of started more in control than it has been in a very long time. And I think that, and part of that is because his teammates are doing a good job getting him in position to go to the basket. But also part of it is I think he is trying to work off ball. I think he could do more of it, but I think it is a reflection of the fact that Dame is taking a lot of shots and Giannis is trying to do stuff to free other guys up. It's not, we get fixated on the 4 possessions in a row where he calls his own number because what the hell. But I think it accurately reflects my impression of the season that it's a little more dialed back. He's not going to the rim as much. He's maybe falling in love with the jumper a little too much, but you got to try it, I guess. It's better than the 3, I suppose. So I guess it's not super surprising. His free throw rate or his free throw percentage being rock bottom is also not surprising and not helping his cause either. Now that he's going fewer times, you got to pay it off even more than you did before. If you're going to the line 14 times a night consistently, okay, the percentage can be a little bit lower because you're getting that many shots, but he's not getting as many shot attempts there. So that's the only thing I'd complain about, really.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I'm trying.
Well, I was just curious. I feel like he's playing well.
I guess one other. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Adam. Go for it.
I was just going to say, I think there's a lot of it's easy to get frustrated when Giannis does the bull rushing thing, but I think, and obviously when he misses the jumper, it's like, well, it's so annoying. Why didn't you just drive to the basket or whatever? But like, again, when he was at his best, I thought it was the playoffs, the late playoff run when he had that jumper going a little bit as a small threat. And I think if he's able to have that as a potential threat, it opens up like some more handoffs in that short area. Like he's able to do quick rolls and maybe even pull up from there. I think because his game is shrinking even further. If he can even expand it right to that like 18 to 19 foot mark, I think that could pay huge dividends. So I've been liking that's been going in so far. It's been working for him.
He went the wrong direction a little bit in that he expanded it too far out to the threes, which realistically were never going to be part of his diet and teams did not respect anyhow. But once he gets within 18 feet, okay, now teams have to respect him. Regardless of what he decides to do, they're going to have one defender for sure, maybe 2 for a double, or a guy at least hedging a little bit. And so he remains effective and pulls gravity his way, and he can make things happen from there. The other thing I wanted to note, so he's averaging the highest points per game he ever has in his career. He's also playing more minutes than he did last season by a fraction. It's not by a lot, but ironic that we went last season. Oh my God. We lose Giannis in the playoffs. The season's essentially a waste because we overuse him. And I know Chris is down. Chris is dead. Chris is literally dead. We don't know where he is. He's dead. And so we have to do this, but ironic that we spend all summer talking about, okay, we're gonna dial it back, and then it's like, never mind. We're gonna ramp it up more than we have in a very long time. And I had one more Giannis question, but I'll wait until a little bit later to ask it because it's gonna be a wider discussion. But just important stuff to know from Giannis. He's still doing the damn thing, even if it can be a little frustrating at times. But that's just kind of how he is. So.
And stop suggesting that he should get traded. I'm gonna crash out if that happens again. All right. I don't want to write another article. Anyway, I'll go with my point. So Taurean Prince has been looking pretty good this season. It's interesting how when Riley and I we're doing the season preview stuff, and it's kind of like, all right, rank these three out of their importance. Taurean Prince was normally third or second. Like, I don't think there may have been one person that had Taurean Prince number one, but he has been the best of the three. Well, there you go, Riley. But Taurean Prince has been the best of the three. Like, he is shooting I think it's like 50-something% from three. He's averaging, 5.5 rebounds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but considering his lack of rebounding when he was in LA, it's been good to see that. In he's been able to kind of be the guy that can move the ball. Against Charlotte, there's times where he would get it and then he would make the extra pass that's needed, or he would be able to make a skip pass over, to like from one end of the court to the other. So I think he's doing everything that is asked of him, and he's doing it pretty well. And at this point, Chris probably is not coming back, and you're going to need someone to do it. And he's been that guy to do it. And then, against Charlotte, 4 or 5 from three. Detroit, he had a couple threes late in regulation that kind of sparked the Bucks getting back into it. Fortunately, missed a really good look from the corner at the end of regulation. But I don't know. It's kind of starting to make me wonder at this point. Chris is going to start when he comes back. But if you're going to bring Chris back and ease him into it, would it make more sense just to have him come off the bench? That could solve Milwaukee's anemic bench issues and just keep Taurean Prince in the starting lineup, because he seems to be fitting in with Giannis, with Dave. Like, he fits in with the starting lineup that's currently there.
That's a good question. I think the beautiful thing is we're going to find out exactly what that looks like, assuming Chris is alive. Let's just put a millionth disclaimer in: if Chris is alive. We don't know.
Yeah.
But when Chris comes back, I do not expect him to be inserted into the starting lineup right away. I think they would be wise to slow roll him off the bench. They've done that in the past where they say, hey, he's back, but he's just going to do 15, 18 minutes off the bench. Okay, easy peasy. Let's see how that looks. And I think it's a reasonable shout. I mean, even if you flip-flop them, I think Taurean Prince, because simply off of the three-point percentages, is going to get minutes, and because of the fact that he's the only true wing defender we have, besides Ajax, who is now emerging a little bit, which is good. I think 2 thumbs up on Taurean. I think in the season preview, not to like brag or anything, but the way I looked at it was, I talked about a lot in the season preview interviews that we did. Gary Trent Jr.'s Malik Beasley replacement. Okay, that's important, but fifth starter guy is always kind of a weird spot. DeLon Wright, backup point guard, has always been a weird spot on this team. Who is he going to be to like buck that trend? Turns out he hasn't. He's actually played worse than I expected him to. And so Taurean Prince, because of who he is and the way the roster is constructed, he's important and he's played well. So shout out to Taurean. I don't know if they'll keep him as a starter though. That's an interesting, like, what would be the qualification for them internally to say, hey, this is working well enough, Chris, you're just going to keep coming off the bench? Like, I'd be curious what kind of discussions they would have around that long term over the course of the season.
Yeah.
Adam, have you been in love with Taurean Prince's play so far this season?
I mean, I think he's played really more than up to any of our expectations would be. I like the idea of having Chris, come off the bench for a while, but I think eventually that he'll definitely be the starter. I think that just the numbers are too good with Dame and Chris and Giannis out there, and so I feel like trying to maximize that is always going to be important. I think my biggest question for when Chris is back is will the Bucks start to use any lineups that have Giannis at center and Prince at the 4? I know he's not huge, but I think that's probably my biggest question to see if that'll happen, because I don't think not that Chris is qualified to do this, but I don't think Prince has been super qualified to guard fast wings. So maybe he can take some players at the 4 that he's a little less equipped to handle at the 3. And so I think that's my biggest question, is just seeing if he's able to fill that in, because theoretically then maybe there's a world where there's Bobby kind of getting nudged out of there, or, if Horst does his bidding and just takes that Portis club out of Doc's bag, which I think would be beneficial for all of us. So I think my biggest question is, how will Prince function when Chris is back, and is it possible for him to work as more of that power forward and be that role that always unlocks those Giannis at center lineups that we're always intrigued by? I did pull up numbers on cleaning the glass. 9 possession. They're 37 possessions so far with Prince and Giannis on the floor, with no Bobby and no Brook. They have a plus 11.5 point differential rating. So points per possession rating. So obviously way too small a sample size, but I will say Damian Lillard, DeLon Wright, Andre Jackson, Taurean Prince, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 9 possessions, plus 98.9 rating. You swap out Pat for Andre Jackson, minus 92. Minus 92. No. So less good for my agenda, but that's okay.
Oh man.
I love the thing about NBA stats is because you can be so granular about it. The number of stupid lineups I found, like, this is the key right here. They're plus 300 in 2.5 minutes together. Why aren't we doing this? Like, it'll be the stupidest lineup you've ever seen. It's such a, like, okay, so I guess real quick follow-up question to Kyle. Kyle, how many minutes of Taurean Prince did you have to see to declare him better than Jay Crowder? Was it 1 or 2? How many minutes did you have to see?
I saw him make a 3, and I said that is good enough for me. I don't even know how long it took. I saw capable of running down the court, seems to be able to guard. There we go. So probably 1 minute. Okay.
He'll actually rebound a little bit too, which is more than I expected from him, and definitely more than I expected from Jay. So that is good. The main question is, like you said, Adam, what role does he play in small ball lineups? I understand that they can't do it right now because of injury issues and stuff like that, but I will be very curious because I still believe that Giannis center lineups, and we have seen an improvement from Giannis defensively the past couple of games against bottom feeders, yes, but we've also seen an improvement in the perimeter defense. We're now 18th in the league in terms of defensive rating, which is better than 24th. So it's an open question, but I think I'm happy that at least one of the 3 hits, and you're hoping with Gary Trent Jr. that it's just a percentages game and he will come back around and be an additive, whether in the starting lineup or off the bench. So I'm very gratified that, given all the chaos of the early season, Taurean Prince has looked very good relative to the expectations coming into the year.
Thank goodness. I mean, one of them had to work out, and so far Taurean Prince has done that. He may as well just start because Chris isn't coming back. That's all I got. I know, Riley, Adam, were there any? I know one of you mentioned having a Giannis question. We can answer it now. Otherwise, I know last week we're going to talk about obscure Bucks, and I do have one person in mind.
Okay. All right. Let's we name some guys segment. We'll switch it over here. We'll make it. It doesn't even have to be like a recurring segment. If you have like a random guy you want to give a shout out to who played for the Bucks, or you thought played for the Bucks, even if they didn't, this is the section to do it.
All right. So I'm going to give a special shout out to the man who, honestly, if he came in now, he'd probably be the best backup point guard Milwaukee has had. Keon Dooling, who came in, played 1 season with the Bucks back in 2010, 2011. He was 40% from the floor, 35% from 3. Average, a whopping 3 assists on 7.1 points per game. So really thriving. However, if you go on his per 36, slightly more impressive, I'll say. I mean, his shooting is still literally the same, except his assists go up to 5 and his points go up to 11.7. Yet I still think he would probably be better than most of the other backup point guards that Milwaukee has brought in.
That is an excessively deep cut. I thought you were going to say Brandon Jennings because he was there to help rally the team earlier this week, which was that was a special moment for everyone. But I'm glad you switched it up to Keon Dooling. A quick question about DeLon Wright. if he never scores another basket, but he routinely has like 5 assists when he's out there, is that good enough? And a couple of steals, do we consider that good enough? If he's a complete zero in terms of scoring on the offensive end?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, good.
It's pretty rough out there right now.
Because it's better. Like we've seen improvement. At least he's providing something when he is on the court. So it is an improvement. I just don't. I guess.
I mean, he's shooting so poorly. He can't be this bad forever. It's totally out of line with his career average. I mean, he's getting that Bucks dip. That is so typical of a player coming here and just sucking. But I mean, I think eventually he'll come around.
He's got the Bucks dip in terms of the percentage, and also he has lost the courage to take threes. Yes, it's so strange. What do we do? What happens? Do they all spend time with Lethal Shooter and they find out actually I should never take a three again? It's so. I'm like DeLon, I know you're not making a lot of them. You gotta take them. If you're not gonna take them, you're never gonna make them. I mean, but come on.
Yeah, him passing up wide open threes in a Charlotte game was like, good Lord, you gotta at least try it. You're wide open. And then I saw his shooting numbers like, yeah, I guess, you know what? No, just pass it. Give it to someone else. This is not worth it. Andre Jackson Jr. is in the corner. Let him do it.
Here's my quick Giannis question. And we don't have to answer this right now, but I want us to think about it. Because there's been, as Kyle has said, a lot of slanderous trade Giannis articles coming from our own mothership, which is effed up 8 ways to Sunday. Kyle agrees. I know Adam agrees. Everybody
non-affiliated mothership.
Non-affiliated mothership. That has nothing to do with this podcast at all, which is why it's named the way it is. So with Giannis, if we think about Giannis 2.0 as being 3 years, and again, it's funny because Giannis 2.0 can be whatever you want it to be, but I think of it as lower usage. He's doing cleanup stuff, blah, blah, blah. What does that mean for Damian Lillard being a member of the Bucks? And is that, and not so much that we're going to change it now, or there's really anything to do about it now, because I think we're kind of stuck with the guy one way or the other. But does that call into question the valuations or the evaluations of the front office, knowing who Giannis is, knowing what he's working on, knowing what he feels comfortable with, and going for Dame anyhow, which objectively, if it's going to be the Giannis show, Dame is like not an ideal fit. So I'm just curious about that. If we're thinking that it's that far off still for Giannis, was it really a big mistake to go in with Dame? And then also does not help that Chris isn't available, but just something to kind of chew on a little bit, because I thought at first, oh, it just takes time or whatever. No, I mean, I think there's genuine concerns with the fact that their styles just don't mesh together, and it feels like something that they should have foreseen, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm an idiot on a non-affiliated podcast, so I can say whatever I want, but they get paid a lot of money to like think about that stuff, I thought. So just something to throw out there. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that.
You know, a good coach would have figured it out by now.
That's an excellent point.
I think there's something to that. I mean, I think everyone and their mother was saying the fit seems totally natural between Dame and that's right. Like you have the pick and roll thing. I think maybe part of it is the front office or maybe coaches. I don't know. Maybe, and part of it's Giannis too, not wanting to do all that rolling and all the screening. I mean, to his credit, I feel like he's actually been doing quite a bit of it lately. He's also been doing like a lot of handoffs and sort of screening while he's doing that action. I don't know. I'm not sure how they'll age together. It'll be curious to see. My Giannis question was actually to Kyle about your article about not trading Giannis, which was great, but it did make me think, like watching the stretch of games this week, it kind of made me think, okay, but this like could be what that's like, right? If we don't trade Giannis and we lose most of our good players, like this wasn't like an awful. This was like possibly a facsimile of what that world would be like, right? Just keeping Giannis and being mediocre.
Yeah. I mean, when I wrote the article, this was right after he scored 59 against the Pistons. Like we just saw what this future is likely going to be. I had fun. It was both annoying and fun watching that Pistons game, because it was like, it felt more of I have reasons to care because Giannis is doing so many awesome things. and it keeps me wanting to watch, as opposed to this is not even the Charlotte game. It was frustrating, but at the same time, I found myself wanting to watch this team more than I have any of these other games all season. And I think part of it is because I think it's just the expectation of, I know Giannis is going to do what he can to win. Maybe it works. Most of the time it at least does. Sometimes it doesn't. And you just hope that there's someone else that can help him out. And I don't know. I had more fun watching. And maybe it's because the Bucks won one game and almost won the other. But if this was kind of what I meant, like, I'd rather watch this than for Milwaukee to trade Giannis and get a bunch of picks and nonsense that might work. But now there's not even a person on this team worth watching.
It's an interesting question because Giannis is so much fun. He's literally the franchise. The thing that people always outside of the franchise or outside of the city misunderstand is it's not like, well, maybe it is kind of like KD and OKC. I don't know how close that relationship with the city was, but to me, it feels slightly differently. And so I think people make the mistake of not understanding the depth of the relationship between the two, the two are so interlocked. And the other thing too that I was thinking of is, like, you know, we've had this moment now. Okay, they're against really crappy teams for the most part. Hornets are slightly better. Pistons been slightly better. Raptors are bad. So it's the sample size is so small and against such varied competition that it's hard to extrapolate out. But okay, what if it's Giannis is the main guy still? Because as we just think we established, he's probably going to be doing this for at least another 3 seasons at this level. Like, he probably has that in him. If you surround him with guys who are available, Chris Middleton is dead. If you guys have guys who can play, that's good. And then if you have another point guard, or if it's Dame, whoever it is, who's a little more complimentary, is that really unrealistic to think they could get there? I don't know I don't feel like it isn't. I mean, we feel trapped into this 3-star thing because we've been with Chris for so long, and Dame, we went all in. So I understand why we have that paradigm right now. But could you make it work with like Giannis, another really good guy, and then like a slightly more tailor-made supporting cast? Maybe. And I don't think that's unreasonable or impossibly like, oh my God, there's no way they're going to get there. There's like a lot of talented guys in professional basketball right now. There's a lot of crappy teams out there, but there's guys out there all the time who get unattached. They end up somewhere else. They get the chance, whatever it is. So I don't want anybody to give in to despair because, yes, the draft pick situation is really bad and the cap situation is bad. But if the front office knows what they're doing, TBD, you can build something around this. It's not, I don't think it's impossible. So I think do not give in to despair. I don't think Giannis has. I think we know what he's capable of. We know what he'll go into the future. It's not like he's going to have a drop off here. And that's still a really freaking good basketball player. And you can build a winner, maybe not tier 1, but you can be in the mix more than 2 and 8 with this guy. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Is like I feel more confident. And also, why would Giannis ask out? He's playing a ton of minutes. He gets to be the man. He gets to score an F load of points. Like, he wants to go for the scoring title, all that stupid stuff. Why would he ask out? Of course, he loves it. I love it too for him. So that's where I'm at with it.
The cap situation will get better in like 2 years because Chris's contract will be done by the end of 2026. Bobby, if he is still here, his contract will be done 2026. Pat Connaughton's contract will be done in 2026. Like, the only players after 2026 that are still contracted is Giannis, Dame, AJ Johnson, Chris Livingston, Andre Jackson Jr., and Tyler Smith. That's it. So the cap will get better. And then the year after that, by the time we get to the final season of Giannis where he can opt in, the only players on contract is Giannis, AJ Johnson, and Tyler Smith. So the cap can get better, and it will give Horst a bit more flexibility.
My final thought on the trade Giannis talk is, like, trust me when I say I will take 25 cents on the dollar for Dame a million times out of 10 rather than even contemplate trading Giannis. I do not care. Like, I have zero loyalty to Damian Lillard. I have a little bit more loyalty to Chris Middleton, but if it comes to throwing things over the edge of the ship to try and save the damn thing, everybody else is gone before I even take a single call about Giannis, I do not care. So I think we just have to also understand that has to be the front office's mentality as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. So I think that's a good enough Bucks talk. We're going to do rapid fire, and I have it this week. So I want to first start off with, do you guys have an irrational fear? And so what is it?
Frogs and toads.
Ooh.
Yeah, I hate them. They're so scary. They're so gross.
Pat Connaughton minutes in 2026, 2027. I'm sorry. I had to do it one last time. Irrational fear. I don't think so. I think anything I'm afraid of is kind of bog standard, like heights, the ocean, in terms of like being in the middle of it, space, the usual stuff that people should quite reasonably be afraid of, is what I would say. So I don't have like an irrational fear, I don't think.
Thunderstorms, like really severe thunderstorms. I don't know why. I get super anxious. It's probably the closest to. I do get irrational, so I'll say that. All right, next one. If you could swap jobs with anyone that you know, what would it be and why?
Can I say that I know Giannis because I cover him on a podcast or no?
No.
Okay, assuming, okay.
You actually have to know a person.
I suppose I should not claim that I have an exclusive personal relationship with Giannis Antetokounmpo just because I talk about him on a podcast. Person I know I'd switch jobs with. That's a good question. Adam, do you know? Buy me time.
I'm rattling through my mental Rolodex of who else
I
might
do
know.
have one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do something to buy us some time, please.
I know someone that is a software developer at Epic Systems. I feel like that would be a great job. You get paid a lot of money. You just make it. If it comes back screwed up, there's people that can test out if it works or not. You just go and make it, and you get paid a lot more money to do it.
Okay, here's one. So I know them in that I've ran in the same volleyball circles, which is as good as blood, essentially. One woman who works for Alliance Francaise, their Minneapolis office, she works in coordinating the language programs there. And I don't speak French, but if I had a job working for Alliance Francaise, I would obviously endeavor to do so. I think working in foreign languages, especially something as established as Alliance Francaise, would be very cool. So of the people that I know directly, everybody else is like office jobs. So I would give a shout out to her as who I would go for.
That is pretty cool.
Okay, I have a friend who I haven't talked to in a while, but last I knew she was working for this well-off woman, like running her business. And on Instagram, she is constantly traveling around the world. So shout out, Catherine. If I could swap jobs with anyone, it would be with you, because I don't even know what you're doing. I'm sure you're working hard as heck because you're a hard worker, but God, you're going awesome places. So that would be what I want to do.
All right. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to ask you both, between a box plus minus, who do you think had a worse, we'll say worse, plus or minus box score? MarJon Beauchamp this season or Jay Crowder in the playoffs, either of the 2 years?
I know the gimmick, Kyle. We know the gimmick, so I'm going to say Jay, and even if you tell me it is MarJon, I will assert that it is actually Jay and that they got the numbers wrong.
Same. It's got to be Jay.
Nope. But so far, MarJon Beauchamp has a minus 14.7, and Jay Crowder in his first year was a minus 11.8, and his second year minus 7.8.
Oh, okay, that's good. He improved.
Yeah.
It's so over for MarJon. It's so over that we didn't even mention that his final year of his deal didn't get picked up. We didn't even mention that. So consider this our catching up on the moment on the news, I should say. Yeah.
Look, we only got a couple months left of MarJon slander. So unlike Jay Crowder, I don't hate him enough to continue slandering him after he leaves. Last question I have. You are able to create a utopian society. What is the first rule you're putting in?
No local blackouts on NBA League Pass in a working Bally Sports.
If you mean FanDuel Sports Network.
Oh, excuse me, FanDuel Sports Network. I just got the
Jade.
freaking blackout for the Charlotte game. I get blacked out Charlotte and Hawks games. I forget it every single year. I just come back. I'm like, I want to watch this game, and then they black it out for me. So stupid.
The worst part about Adam's rule number 1 is it would take the NBA about 2.5 seconds to make that a reality. We're so damn close to the freaking utopia. It's right there. It just won't.
I'm on week 10 of a newborn. I can't even think of a utopia more than that. No local blackouts. That is my utopia.
My rule number 1 utopia is we would give everybody the resources, and whether it be guidance or simply assistance from somebody else to have your own memoirs written for your family. Assuming you have you have the knowledge, whatever time you choose in your life that you say, I'm gonna write my memoirs, my record, and it's not gonna be a big print run, just a couple of copies for the closest people in my life. I would give everybody the ability to do that, to leave a written record of their life in their own words.
I like it. Mine.
And we would have NBA League Pass, no blackouts.
Thank you.
That would be it's 1A and 1B, obviously.
All right. My first rule I'm putting in is waiters, waitresses, bartenders. Basically, if you have a job that is relying on tips, you are able to charge extra for anyone that is being an asshole to you. And then if they don't pay, you are able to go to their house and get the money however you would like, / you can steal their credit card. That is the rule.
Okay.
Post in the comments well. whose utopia would you live in first?
We can't have people comment that, because it would be you by such a large runaway margin, Adam. It's not.
I'm gonna say Adam's going for the most wanted answer. I'm going for the most chaotic answer.
And I'm going for sort of in between. So that's very good.
And plus, there wouldn't be NBA League Pass blackouts, because there wouldn't be NBA League Pass, because there would be something better.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's
all right. Those are the rapid fire questions I have. Riley, we have a pen review. Is there an ink review?
Yeah, this is an ink review. And actually, very interesting you asked that. There's an art supply store just up the street from us. We got their holiday ad in the mail. They sell fountain pens and fountain pen ink. Can you bet this up and around the corner? I had no idea. I would never have guessed. So I will be stopping in. I spotted a little something, little $50 thingamajig that I might be adding to the collection. I might see if I can go in and test it out, give it a test drive, see if I like it. But until then, we're still on inks. Robert Oster, the gift that keeps on giving. We are reviewing his ink, NG Special 16. Now, those who paid attention in chemistry will know that NG stands for nitroglycerin. And if you've heard of nitroglycerin, that's typically used in like TNT and stuff. So it's explosive, right? We're thinking explosive with this. This ink, and I'll show you guys, is damn light. Hold on now. It's like a peach orange is the way that I would describe it. So I'll be perfectly honest, and it makes me sound stupid and vain, but that's because I am. When I write, if I'm going to write on a daily basis, I would like my ink to be very nice to look at. And so as often as I've tried black inks and just blue inks and whatever to keep it, because they usually stay the longest, it's not exactly fulfilling writing out whatever in black ink. So this here is really, really good. And I'm happy to say I've used it for the first time I've written in my journal, 5 days in a row. And it'd been a very long time since I was that consistent. So it runs real easy. It's like butter coming out the pen. It goes on darker than you'd think, and it dries really nicely. And a lot of inks, ironically, when you write for them for too long, they get lighter as you go along, because usually there's a concentration at the start and it just kind of thins out. This seems to go in the opposite direction, where it's getting darker as I write further, which actually encourages you to write more. So it's a gorgeous ink. I've always liked orangey inks. I think this might be my favorite of the Robert Osters I've tried so far, which is high praise because I've liked a lot of what he had so far. So Robert Oster NG Special 16, kind of a really random title. They usually are for him, but excellent. And he does a peach one as well, which I would love to try sometime. So 2 thumbs up from me. And again, it's brought a little bit of joy into writing in my journal, which is exactly what I needed to get back into it. So very happy with it.
Considering how many of those you got from him, the fact that this is one of the top ones, that is high praise. The highest of praise, probably.
I had to have reviewed probably 8, 9, or 10 of them at this point, and this is number one of the bunch. So he did a great job. I would love to know in what form he just grabbing out of the stockpile, we'll throw this in there, throw that in there. I would love to know what he was grabbing, what his thought process was. But this one gets an approval from me. It brings me back to some of the first things I had, which I really enjoyed as well. So good on you, Robert. This is a good one.
All right. Now we are going into the final section. We have predictions. So last week, I think we had the Houston game. We did not have the Charlotte game.
I was going to give a shout out to me misreading the calendar. My bad about that. But
we still predicted most of us predicted a loss, and it happened. So Monday it's actually a homestand. So finally get some home games in a row. So Monday will be at home against Houston. Then Wednesday will be at home against Chicago. Friday will be at home against the Pacers in the NBA Cup. And then Saturday, they will host the Charlotte Hornets again. So, Adam, what is your prediction for this week?
No real reason for this, but I'm guessing 3-1.
Who do they lose to, and why is it so annoying? Which one's the most optimal? Pacers, okay.
They're just always annoying.
All right.
I'm gonna buck the trend. Nah, never mind. They'll go 3-1, and they'll lose against the Rockets. Just because I think I predicted them to lose to the Rockets when I thought it was a road game. In fact, it's a home game. But Dame will come back. They'll look sort of out of sorts. Everyone will kind of do a little bit of this, wringing their hands, and then they'll look good against the Bulls, Pacers, and then they'll get one over the Hornets. So 3-1 this week.
I'm going a little bit more pessimistic. I'm saying 2-2. I think they beat the Rockets. No, they'll lose to the Rockets. I think they beat the Pacers because the Pacers have also been struggling. And I think with more youth, it actually helped them. So I think they beat the Pacers, they beat the Bulls, and then lose to Charlotte and Houston again. Charlotte is also on a back-to-back, so that's why.
Beautiful.
Yeah. But all right, that is that for all of us. Make sure to check us out at brewhoop.com. We have everything and anything for you. Monday morning media roundup. We have the tracker, weekly Wednesday wrap up, reviews, game previews, game threads. All of it is going to be there at brewhoop.com. Follow us on Blue Sky now. We are out of that garbage website that I'm not calling anymore. We are now on Blue Sky, so make sure to follow each of us there and make sure to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends and anyone else that is listening. And we will talk to you again shortly.